Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today, we're going to be doing part two of the benefits of therapy. I have Jamie Jones on the show today, and she's going to finish the show off by talking about the benefits of being a therapist. So, get you something to drink, get you a snack, and come on back. So, Jamie, welcome back.
Hello.
Yes, I absolutely enjoyed part one of this show. Like it was a really good flow, and I really like how you were able to bring out the benefits of being a therapist, and I also liked your personal story as what it took to get you to this point. So, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Now I want to talk a little bit about the service part. Is that the right pronunciation? Service part, or what do you guys call it?
Therapeutic or
Therapeutic. Okay, the therapeutic part.
okay.
So when I talked to you about, I know you talked to me about you provide several therapeutic sections or
Technique.
whatever.
Yes.
I know you do. Let me look at my notes. Brain spotting.
Hmm.
You also provide services to families, children. You
Hmm.
do motivational interviews, inner child work, stuff like that. So what do you find to be the most effective tool that you use in regards to what I just said? Um,
So with everybody, like we were talking about, almost like with trauma and how it's individual and personal,
okay.
um, I believe that it's the same for therapy.
Yeah.
I feel like people will come in and they have different needs on different
Yeah.
days. And even during
Yeah.
a session, we might start out with, they're saying, I want to do some brain spotting. And then I might incorporate some inner child work with that. Or we
Yeah.
definitely might do some talk therapy or psychodynamic therapy. So it just depends on their needs. My specialties and what I'm certified in is definitely with the brain spotting.
Okay.
It really helps with the trauma. But I also have a lot of different, so it's client centered. Looks, oh, you didn't freeze. Okay, just want to make sure. It's
Okay.
client centered. And so whatever they need, I let them kind of in a way, I'm watching them and they don't know, but they're running that session and I'm
Yeah.
rating them and figuring
Yeah.
out what it is that we need to go into. I do anger management. I work with um, people who are on the spectrum and their different needs, some a lot to do with social skills and communication skills, those types of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just matters what they need.
Yeah. So tell me, what is brain spotting?
So brain spotting is a technique that uses the eye position to be able to channel inner trauma. So
Mm,
normally with brain spot or with therapy, everybody knows just talk therapy, correct? And so that is more of just being able to kind of get out and release what's going on. But you'll notice when you're doing talk therapy, it feels good at that moment, and it does feel good sometimes to be able to get it out. But if you're feeling kind of stuck in stuff, or if things are kind of I like to just say stuck.
hmm.
And so it helps with like lots of different things. It doesn't just have to be trauma or PTSD, but brain spotting helps with anxiety, depression. Like I said, if you had a car accident and you're feeling like a little bit of like jumpiness from that, I've done brain spotting for that. Some
Wow.
people with sleep issues, brain spotting, I think, can help with a variety of things. Um, and what it does is it gets more into your cerebral cortical part of your brain, which is what we call like that reptilian part of the brain. So Dan Siegel, he's this doctor that he's at a university and studies neuroscience, and he describes the brain as like with your hand, and he describes this as like your frontal lobe, and this is our talk part. This is up here.
Yeah.
And we've got your emotions, and then down here, this part is our brainstem. It attaches to our body, but that's where the reptilian part of the brain is. And what happens is when we have different traumas or events that happen where we feel stuck, they get stored in capsules back here, and so they're actually back in this level. And
Wow.
talk therapy reaches here. And sometimes it gets to the emotions to kind of work through it. But to be able to really go in there, we use what's called a brain spot. And with the eye position, it's our nerves, our optical nerves are attached to our brain. And when you look, you kind of tap into that trauma capsule or wherever it is. So David Grand, he discovered in 2003, he was working with an athlete and he was trying to help her to be able to get past this blockage. She wanted to be able to do a triple axel. I believe she was an ice skater. And they were doing EMDR, which is kind of like eye positioning, but it's more of a movement type thing. And they had been doing it for a while, and she was just not, it wasn't helping as much. And he was doing EMDR with her, and he had noticed that he had gotten to this point and he saw her eyes kind of flutter. And he was like, that's interesting. And he just kept it there. And as she's looking at the point, she started like processing and just feeling it, and some things were coming out, and she was processing more deeper, and her eyes were fluttering, and she stayed there. And because he's very intuitive with his clients, he just trusted it. Instead of thinking, oh, this isn't the EMDR way, he's like, well, apparently this is working for her. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
And when she was done, she asked him, she was like, what did you do differently that felt different? And he was like, I just, you seem to be processing right there. So we let you go ahead and do that. And it ends up that she went to go try her triple axel, I believe is what it's called. Please don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But she was able to do it. And
wow.
So he was like, there's something really going on here. And so he started doing that. And that's what we find. It tends to help you process and release, and you don't have such an intense emotional connection to that event or person or whatever. It's like,
wow, man, that's interesting. So do you find that it has been very successful with your clients you've been doing this with?
Yeah, wow. I have. And what I love about this technique is, one thing about it is, especially when it comes to trauma, like I said, I work a lot with guys who are first responders and vets, and then also people who've had some serious trauma, child abuse, sexual assaults. You don't have to verbalize the story. You do not have to relive it to be able to process it. With brain spotting, we are really depending on you and your mind to know what it needs to do. We're getting that position because that eye position is accessing that trauma capsule and helping you process those feelings and getting them through your body. And no matter whatever way you process is totally fine. If you do need to say some things, I've had people who totally don't say anything the whole time. And so be it. I've had people who will talk sporadically throughout it. That's fine. And I've had people who are very talkative and they just need to be able to get it out, but they don't have to. So if a person like a vet doesn't want to share a story of a fallen, comrade or his fallen platoon, and he doesn't want to have to verbalize that, he doesn't have to. But we can definitely get in on that issue, because what I do is I say, okay, what issue would you like to work on today for your healing? And then he might say, even a code word like Coke or something,
Yeah.
and then I'll say, tell me some feelings related to that. And then what we're doing is we're trying to get those feelings to rise up. We're
Yeah.
finding that brain spot where you're feeling those feelings. And then I'm there working with you. And the part of the therapist, it's very interesting dynamic, because in therapy, usually they think of a therapist and it's just talking, right?
Yeah.
I'm not talking hardly at all.
Yeah.
Very much so, the therapist's job is to be very in tune with the client. And so when we notice when clients have been through whatever issue it is that they're working on, they need to know that they're not alone and that they're safe. And
Yes.
I am there looking at them. And when they look up at my eyes and they know nobody's left me, I'm here, I'm safe. I'm there. I might say something like, as in, you're doing really good, keep going. If I've noticed that they're like kind of skipping through the emotion, like maybe judging that emotion or not giving it space to feel, I'll encourage them to come back and say, you know what, let's just go into that anger just a little bit more and see where it takes us. That kind of like just encouraging them to just be in it. And then also it's my job to make sure that you're safe. So if I'm starting to notice that you're really getting flooded with, and that might mean like intense emotions and you can't stand it, or you're disassociating. That's another thing that we do to save ourselves when we're feeling the emotions too intense and we don't feel it. We jump out of our body. I then have different type of techniques and safe places and safe things for that person to do to be able to process those emotions in a more way that they can handle, because I do not want to traumatize the person.
Wow. Wow. So what happens to, first of all, I think that is phenomenal. I think that technique definitely has it perks. I can really see as you start to explain how you get deep into whatever the trauma is and try to bring it up, and I think that's important, because that's what you want when your clients come. You want to focus on whatever the issue, whatever it is bringing you guys here. Let's deal with that.
Exactly.
So I like that. So what happens after brain spotting? What happens to the client after that?
So depending on the client's personal needs, we can't say how many sessions it's going to take. Sometimes one session and they just feel really good and a lot of relief.
Wow.
Sometimes, depending on how deep it is, or if it's intertwined with other trauma, we might need to go in and keep going.
Yeah.
For me though, I've done my own brain spotting. What I notice is I feel a sense of relief afterwards. You're usually very tired. You've done like what's called a mental marathon, and so you're very exhausted. And so we recommend, just give yourself some time to relax and be able to go home and not have to worry. But your mind is still kind of going and you're not really heightened. I'm not leaving you at like a 10 of anger and anxiety. I'm making sure you're down more towards the 1 or 2 or like a 0, hopefully, but your brain doesn't automatically shut off. So it's going to still keep processing. So you might notice that you're like, there's something going on back there. And it's nothing really big. It's not going to make you really tired, but something happens and you might be like a little bit emotional about it or something. It's just your brain still processing. And then like after about 24, 48 hours, all of a sudden you lose, it's gone. And then what I noticed with mine is when I was working through some stuff, when I had the opportunity to be triggered by something that would have normally kind of made me react, I was able to be like, and I was able to kind of think about it differently. And then I didn't hold on to it. I just said my piece for this certain instance. I said my piece. I was like, I moved on from it. And I was like, okay.
That's
I had
good.
a person that was telling me, that they felt the same way. They don't feel the attachment to the emotions as much as they did.
Yeah. What I love about you so far and what I'm hearing, I like the fact that you have experience with trauma.
Mhm.
I've always said that people who, whether you're a pastor, whether you're a teacher, whatever profession you're in, if you have that life experience attached to your profession, in my opinion, I think that that makes you a more effective person. The scripture tells us that Jesus was a man who was in touch with the same feelings that we are. There was nothing that we go through now that he did not either go through or did not know or have to deal with himself, which
Yes.
in my opinion made him a very effective teacher, very effective leader. So I think that's really, really good. And I am going to be sending people your way.
Thank
Just
you.
I really am, because I think that's important. I feel really comfortable with sending your referral. So, thank
Thank
you for
you
that.
so
Yeah.
much.
Um, so I want to talk a bit about, jump back a little bit about the Sac State, because I know you were assisting students that had a learning disability.
Yeah, I worked at Sac State in the disabilities department,
Yeah,
and I was there almost 20 years, I think 18 years
yeah,
or something like that. So I'm certified as an adult learning disability specialist. I also have before working at Sac State, I worked as a director in an autism center. I worked with behavioral issues with students, not just with autism, but with that come from foster care systems and stuff like that. So I have a lot of experience with
yeah,
logical disabilities, learning disabilities, behavioral disabilities in children, young adults.
yeah,
Um, and adults. I worked with traumatic brain injury there as well. And there was a portion of time that I was also working with our deaf and hard of hearing population. And so I'm very, very well versed in accommodations, technology, the laws all around that, and also that piece of the therapy that's needed for students who are living these lives. Students aren't just a student, they
yeah,
have life going on. And so they would come in
yes,
and they're like, I'm a single mom. I have a learning disability. So I have to
yeah,
spend like 3 5 hours just reading one chapter that would normally take
yeah,
like a person an hour. And I've got to
yeah,
do this and this. And so just being able to bring them in and kind of give them a lot of relaxation techniques and just being that ear,
mhm,
and the resources to be able
yeah,
to offer them and say, okay, let's figure out what we can do. And they've really helped build my foundation of, I feel the empathy
yeah,
and the compassion and looking
yeah,
at everybody's life as they're not coming from the same walk of life.
mhm,
And just being able to kind of listen and hear them and hear their needs and wants, and then saying, okay, what is it that I could do to help this person, even if it is just being an ear or just being like, oh my gosh, I know you're suffering. It's finals
yeah,
week. You got this. We got this.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I have one of my oldest sisters, a second oldest sister. She has a learning disability,
Mm,
and it has definitely been very hard for her throughout the years,
yes.
because my mom did not get her the help that she needed, and so she just resulted to the streets. She resulted to the streets and selling drugs, going to
Yeah.
prison, and and when we were growing up, people would call her slow or dumb, and that was a trigger for her. Like, she lost it. And I remember me and her about 4 years ago, we had a conversation. I was coming from Walmart, and she was like, saying, "What do you do?" I said, "Come from Walmart." She said, "I really wish I was able to do that." She said, "You went to school, you're successful." And she said, and I felt so bad. Like, I was just like, oh my God, my heart was broken. And she said, all I want to be in life was a nurse, but I know I'm not smart enough and things like that. And I've always tried to encourage her from afar, to get some resources and some help, but she never did, because she was ashamed that she couldn't read or she couldn't write. And I mean, it's unfortunate that she had to go through that. But yeah.
First of all, it's never too late for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Learning disabilities, people with disabilities are protected under the
Hmm.
ADA. And community colleges and colleges have a disability office, and they can get assessed, and then they can get the accommodations that they need to be able to help them to be able to get to where they need to be. Now, not everybody's going to get there, right? Because it just figure whatever, if you're
Yeah.
picking, if your learning disability really impacts you in science and in math, and then you decide
Yeah.
that you want to be a doctor, we may need to relook at that, right? Because not
Yeah.
everybody's perfect and good at everything. We all
Right.
have our strengths and our weaknesses. The problem is, and this is what I find so just heartbreaking, is that, like your sister, there are so many people out there that weren't encouraged, that weren't discovered, weren't given the resources that they needed to be able to be successful because they have a learning disability, instead told that they were no good and that they were
Hmm.
worthless and that they couldn't do anything. When in
Yeah.
fact, I have seen so many people who did not know how to read and did
Yeah.
not know how to do math, and with aid and help and getting all the tutoring that they need and getting the confidence in people backing them up and people saying, you've got this, being
Yeah.
able to make something out of their life. You know, my mom had a severe learning disability. She
Mhm.
had issues with drugs. It was on the street. And then I went to college, and my mom was like, you know what? I want to go to college. She's like,
Yeah.
I want to do this. My mom went back to community college, started at the lowest of the low when it came to
Mm.
writing and reading and math.
Yeah.
And she graduated with a bachelor's degree at 55 years old. I was
Wow.
so
Nice.
proud of her, so proud
Yeah.
of her. And I worked at
Nice.
Sac State when she was going, and she would come in my office crying, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'll tell you, sometimes when I just needed to be that cheerleader, I was like,
Yeah.
this, mom, you got this. It's okay. You
Yeah.
got this. You're strong enough. You're smart enough. You've got this. And people
Nice.
also who have addiction issues, because
Hmm.
we know that the use of drugs and alcohol can affect our brain, right? And the way that
Yeah.
we process. Sometimes we process slowly, or we have memory issues. If you are in recovery, you are also covered under the Americans with Disability Act. You're considered a person with a disability. So you can go in and you can get accommodations if you need a
Yeah.
little extra time on your test, or if you need a little extra help, like being able to get access some tutoring resources that wouldn't be normally available to other people, or different types of awesome technology, like note-taking technology. Like when I was in college, I just had to write it down. And if I missed it, I missed it. But now there's
Uh-huh.
things like the Live Scribe pen that
Yes.
records, and you miss it, you could like go back to the recording that you missed, and it'll write it and put it on the computer for you, and all your notes are there.
Yeah.
So, and all this stuff can be provided by the school.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
there's a lot of really wonderful opportunities. But what I find is that people are not told about it. And
Hmm.
then they're put in a little box and thrown to the side and saying that
Hmm.
you don't get this opportunity because you don't have, A, B, and C. You don't have privilege. And to me, that's ridiculous. We need to
Yes.
start letting people know that, you know what, let's figure this out and let's help you, because everybody deserves something. If you want to
Yeah.
go to school, yes, let's see what we can do for you.
Yes. Absolutely. And I like how you talked about your mom. That's a incredible story for her to get the willpower and self motivation to make sure that she accomplished something that a goal that she set out for herself. And I think you being there in that capacity to be able to be a cheerleader for her, and her coming down to the area, the space that she was in, to be able to encourage her when she needed the encouragement, because we all need it at some point in time in our life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
um, I want to talk a bit more about the addiction part of your career, because that, I mean, obviously people are, that's kind of like what's on the radar now. You know, we got the opiates and the alcohol, and then, you know, the meth and things like that. Like, how do you, like, what type of therapy do you provide for people who come into your office or come to you with a severe addiction?
So, first of all, when you come for therapy, when you're coming to my office, you do need to be sober because
Okay,
you
good.
cannot do therapy if you're intoxicated at all. It's not
Hmm.
helpful.
Yeah,
But once you're sober, now I don't mean to say you need to be as in like you're not using, because people will go home and they will drink or what have you.
yeah,
But when you come to see me for us to be able to do therapy, you need to be sober. Um, One thing that I find is that I don't find the addiction as the problem. That's a coping skill. That's not the root of the problem. You didn't grow up saying, or we didn't grow up, whoever the person with addiction didn't grow up saying, I would really love to be an alcoholic and lose my job and lose my marriage. You know, that just sounds fun. No, we
mhm,
use because there's something that we're trying to numb or escape, or we didn't learn coping skills on how to deal with our emotions, whatever it may be, right? So it could be that we have family generational curse of family just coming home. Dad says, I'm going to go, like, I need a drink because I've had a hard day at work constantly. And that's how you're shown how to deal with your emotions, instead of being able to just say, you know what, I had a hard day at work today. Can we talk about this? Or, you know, I'm going to go exercise. I'm going to go do something good for myself. I'm going to take care of myself some way or another. Right. And
yeah,
so, what in my therapy, what I really like to do is get to, okay, what's really going on? And what are you afraid of? What is the root of the problem? And
yeah,
so, my guys, when I work in the rehab facility, um, that's when they come to see me, that's what we're looking at. And depending on if they're ready or not, we'll see. Um,
yeah,
some will kind of stay superficial and they don't want to really go deeper, and they want to tell me that no, it's just a drinking. If I can just, you know, be strong enough to not drink anymore, or be strong enough to not, you know, do whatever anymore, I can just kick this. And I'm thinking, and I tell them, I'm like, you know, if that was truth, then rehabs wouldn't be needed, because
yeah,
everybody, when they're at your low right now, like you almost died and you're here, so apparently there's a reason why you need to be here. You don't want to do this anymore. Your mind is
yeah,
strong enough that you're saying, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like there's something else, you know.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
that's where we go for the deeper stuff. I'm that person, they always see me come and they're like, oh God, you know, they're going to be exhausted. I'm like, it's only an hour, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's just an hour of
Yes.
your day, then you can
Yes.
go back and do whatever you want to do, but let's do some work.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's it for this today's edition of Mental Health Matters. If you enjoyed this show, if you would like a DVD copy of the show, or if you would like to be a guest on our show, please dial 916 366 4600. Thank you.